The interrogation room smelled of sterilized metal and fear. Zektar's multiple eyes darted between the recording devices as his clawed hands trembled against the cold table. The Galactic Council's investigators sat across from him, their faces unreadable behind protective shields. After 3 rotations of silence, he finally spoke. "You want to know about the humans?" Zektar rasped through his translator, his voice carrying the weight of memories that haunted his sleep cycles. "You want to understand why the entire Valdrak Empire retreated from a single star system? Why our most feared legions refuse deployment orders? Why seasoned warriors wake screaming in their barracks?" The lead investigator, a tall selenite with crystalline features, leaned forward. "Begin with your first encounter, Soldier Zektar." The Battle of Kepler 442b. Zektar's breathing apparatus wheezed as he recalled that cursed day. We were the Crimson Talon Regiment. Elite shock troops. We had conquered 47 worlds without a single defeat. Our commander, Warchief Fextol, called this mission a cleansing operation. The humans had established a mining colony on the planet's largest continent. Intelligence reports indicated 3,000 civilians, maybe 500 security personnel with basic laser weapons. He paused, his secondary arms wrapping around his torso in a defensive gesture. We landed at dawn with 12,000 soldiers. Full battle armor, plasma cannons, atmospheric fighters providing close support. The human settlement was built around a series of rocky outcroppings near a freshwater lake. Simple prefabricated structures, nothing that should have posed any tactical challenge. The selenite made notes on her datapad. What happened during the initial assault? That's where everything went wrong, Zektar continued, his voice growing quieter. The humans didn't surrender when we broadcast the standard capitulation demands. They didn't even seem frightened. Their response came over all frequencies: "Unknown forces, you have 30 minutes to withdraw from this system or face the consequences of your actions." A bitter laugh escaped his translator. Warchief Fextol found their defiance amusing. He ordered the bombardment to begin immediately. Our artillery units opened fire on the settlement's outer buildings, reducing them to rubble within minutes. We expected panic, evacuation attempts, desperate communications pleading for mercy. Instead, we received another transmission. Zektar's primary eyes closed as he remembered. A human female's voice, calm as deep space, warning acknowledged. You have 29 minutes, 23 seconds remaining. We recommend immediate withdrawal. The warchief became enraged. He deployed the entire first wave, 3,000 troops in assault formation. I was among them, leading my squad toward what appeared to be the main administrative building. The terrain was rough, with plenty of natural cover, but our thermal scopes showed no movement. No defensive positions. Nothing. His voice trembled. That should have been our first warning. When an enemy shows no fear, no preparation for battle, it usually means they know something you don't. The investigator's crystalline features reflected the room's harsh lighting. Describe the moment combat began. We were within 500 meters of the settlement when the ground exploded. Zektar's words came faster now, as if speaking quickly might lessen their impact. Not from conventional mines or artillery. The humans had somehow turned the planet itself into a weapon. Shaped charges buried throughout the approach routes detonated in sequence, creating a wall of fire and flying stone that stretched across our entire front line. But that was just the beginning. As my unit regrouped, trying to find alternate routes forward, the real horror revealed itself. The humans emerged from concealment positions we never detected, despite our advanced scanning equipment. They moved like predators, using terrain features that our tactical computers had dismissed as irrelevant. Zektar stood abruptly, pacing to the room's far wall. Do you understand what I'm telling you? These weren't soldiers in the way we understand the term. They were something else entirely. Each human carried enough firepower to outfit an entire Valdrak squad, yet they moved faster than our scouts. Their weapons fired projectiles that could penetrate our combat armor at ranges we considered safe. The most disturbing part was their silence. Our forces fight with war cries, coordinated shouts, the music of honorable combat. The humans said nothing. They simply appeared, fired with mechanical precision, and vanished before our return fire could find them. The Selenite investigator exchanged glances with her colleagues. Your reports mention unusual tactical behavior. Elaborate. Unusual doesn't begin to describe it, Zektar replied, his translator struggling with the emotional undertones. They didn't follow standard battlefield doctrine. Where we expected flanking maneuvers, they attacked head-on. When logic demanded retreat, they advanced. Their entire approach seemed designed to create maximum psychological impact rather than tactical advantage. One of their fighters appeared directly in our command post. Somehow, this single human had penetrated 3 defensive perimeters, neutralized 6 guard positions, and reached Warchief Vextol's position without triggering a single alarm. The human was smaller than any of our soldiers, carrying what appeared to be primitive kinetic weapons, yet moved with a fluid grace that made our enhanced warriors look clumsy. Zektar's secondary arms gestured frantically. The human spoke directly to Vextol in perfect Valdrak. Your 30 minutes expired 4 minutes ago. This is your final opportunity to withdraw. The warchief drew his ceremonial blade, a weapon that had claimed the lives of countless enemies in single combat. The human didn't even flinch. What followed wasn't a battle. It was a demonstration. The human disarmed Vextol without drawing a weapon, using only their bare hands and some form of martial technique we'd never encountered. Our warchief, a veteran of 200 conflicts, was rendered unconscious in less than 30 seconds. The room fell silent except for the humming of recording equipment. Zektar returned to his seat, his composure cracking further. The human could have killed him. Could have ended the chain of command and thrown our forces into chaos. Instead, they activated our communication system and broadcast a message to every Valdrak unit on the planet: your commander is unharmed but defeated. You have 1 hour to evacuate all personnel and equipment. Any forces remaining after the deadline will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. Another investigator, a mantis like Kethran, spoke for the first time. Your forces outnumbered the human defenders by a factor of 4 to 1. Why didn't you continue the assault? Zektar's laugh was hollow. Because by then, we understood the truth. This wasn't a mining colony. It was a trap. The humans had been expecting us, preparing for us. Everything from the settlement's location to the timing of our arrival had been anticipated and planned for. Within minutes of the ultimatum, human reinforcements began arriving from orbital positions we never detected. Their ships appeared on our sensors like ghosts materializing from deep space. Stealth technology beyond anything in our databases, coupled with engine signatures that suggested propulsion systems decades ahead of standard galactic technology. But the ships themselves weren't the most terrifying aspect. It was the humans aboard them. As they disembarked, our long-range scopes revealed their true nature. These weren't desperate colonists fighting for survival. They were professional soldiers, equipped and trained to a standard that made our elite forces look like raw recruits. Zektar's primary eyes met the investigators' gazes. Each human carried equipment worth more than our entire regiment's armament budget. Their armor incorporated materials our scientists couldn't identify. Their weapons fired ammunition that seemed to violate known principles of ballistics and energy physics. The most disturbing observation came from our intelligence specialists. These humans weren't using their full capabilities. Everything we witnessed, the tactical precision, the advanced equipment, the effortless defeat of our forces, represented a fraction of their actual potential. They were holding back, demonstrating restraint that somehow made them more terrifying than if they had simply annihilated us. The Selenite investigator made another notation. Your unit withdrew from the planet. What convinced Warchief Vextol to abandon the mission? It wasn't a military decision, Zektar replied. It was a survival decision. One of the human soldiers approached our regrouping position under a flag of truce. This individual was clearly a leader, though they wore no rank insignia or identifying marks. They requested a private conference with Vextol. I was selected to accompany the warchief as a witness. The human led us to a secure location away from both our forces and theirs. What followed was not a negotiation or surrender demand. It was an education. Zektar's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. The human showed us tactical displays of our entire fleet deployment. Not just the forces committed to this operation, but every Valdrak ship within 20 parsecs. They knew the exact location, armament, and crew complement of vessels that were supposed to be running under complete sensor silence. Then, they showed us surveillance footage of Valdrak colonies throughout the sector. Our most secure installations, our hidden supply depots, our classified research facilities. all observed and catalogued in detail that suggested months or years of preparation. The message was clear without being explicitly stated. The humans weren't just defending this one world. They were prepared to defend against any level of escalation we might choose to pursue. And they possessed the intelligence, technology, and tactical capability to carry out operations against any target we valued. The room's atmospheric recyclers hummed in the silence as the investigators processed this information. The mantis-like Kethran leaned forward. What was War Chief Vextol's response to this revelation? He asked the human a direct question, Zektar recalled. What do you want from us? The answer changed everything. The human said, nothing. We want nothing from you, nothing you possess, nothing you've built. We simply want to be left alone to develop our society in peace. Continue on your current path, and we'll ensure that peace through whatever means necessary. Vextol demanded to know the extent of human capabilities. Were there other worlds? Other colonies? How large was their sphere of influence? The human smiled, and I learned that day that a smiling human is far more dangerous than an angry one. War Chief, they said, you've encountered one minor defensive outpost protecting a resource extraction operation. We have no desire to demonstrate anything beyond that. Zektar stood again, his agitation increasing. Don't you understand what that means? This entire operation, this demonstration of capability that broke our regiment's spirit and forced our withdrawal, was conducted by what the humans considered a minor defensive outpost. Not a military installation. Not a fortress world. A minor outpost. The human continued speaking, and every word burned itself into my memory. Your empire has built its strength through conquest and subjugation. You measure success by the number of worlds brought under your control. We measure success differently. We prefer to build rather than destroy, to explore rather than conquer, to learn rather than dominate. But, make no mistake, we are fully capable of defending those values against any threat, regardless of its size or apparent strength. The Selenite investigators' crystalline features reflected concern. How did this encounter conclude? The human provided Vextol with detailed star charts showing safe passage routes around all known human territories. They also included communication protocols for establishing diplomatic contact if the Valdrak Empire ever chose to pursue peaceful relations. Then, they offered something that still haunts me. Zektar's breathing became labored. They invited a small delegation of our officers to tour their minor outpost and observe their defensive capabilities firsthand. Vextol selected myself and 2 other squad leaders to accompany him. What we saw during that tour violated everything we thought we knew about military science, engineering capabilities, and the nature of galactic civilization itself. The humans had built their outpost into the planet's geological structure, creating defensive positions that could withstand direct orbital bombardment. Their manufacturing facilities could produce advanced equipment from raw planetary materials. Their computer systems processed information at speeds that made our best artificial intelligences look primitive. But the technology wasn't the most disturbing aspect. It was the humans themselves. They moved with casual confidence through an installation that represented centuries of advanced development. Every individual we encountered demonstrated competence levels that would have qualified them as specialists in multiple fields within our military structure. Yet they treated these capabilities as normal, unremarkable aspects of their daily routine. The room fell silent as Zektar concluded his account. The investigators exchanged meaningful glances, their expressions reflecting the gravity of what they had heard. The implications extended far beyond a single military defeat or tactical failure. They had just learned that somewhere in the galaxy, a species existed whose defensive capabilities alone exceeded the offensive potential of one of the major galactic powers. The Selenite investigator finally spoke. Soldier Zektar, this concludes your initial testimony. You will remain available for additional questioning as our investigation continues. As the recording devices powered down and the investigators began gathering their materials, Zektar remained seated, staring at his trembling hands. The memories of that day would never fade, and he knew that sharing them had only been the beginning of a much larger and more terrifying story. 3 days passed before the investigators reconvened. This time, they brought additional personnel, xenobiologists, military analysts, and technology specialists from across the Galactic Council. Zektar entered the expanded interrogation chamber to find himself facing a panel of 12 different species, all focused on extracting every detail of his human encounter. the lead Selenite investigator activated the recording systems. Soldier Zektar, today we want to discuss the tactical analysis you conducted following your withdrawal from human space. Begin with your observations about human combat doctrine. Zektar settled into his chair, his multiple eyes scanning the assembled experts. Understanding human combat doctrine requires abandoning everything we know about conventional warfare. They don't fight according to established galactic military principles. They fight according to their own evolved instincts, modified by technology that amplifies their natural predatory capabilities. A Kethran military analyst leaned forward. Explain what you mean by predatory capabilities. Humans are pursuit predators, Zektar replied, his translator processing the complex military terminology. Most galactic species evolved from herbivores or scavengers. Our combat instincts focus on group coordination, defensive formations, and resource control. Humans evolved as hunters. Their entire psychological and physical structure is designed for tracking, pursuing, and neutralizing prey. He stood and began pacing, his agitation evident. During the tour of their outpost, I observed human soldiers training. They weren't practicing formation maneuvers or equipment maintenance. They were running. 4 hours. Across terrain that would exhaust our enhanced warriors in minutes. When I asked our guide about this activity, she explained that humans consider a 20-kilometer run light exercise for maintaining basic fitness. 20 kilometers? The military analyst's mandibles clicked in disbelief. That's beyond the endurance capacity of most galactic infantry species. It gets worse, Zektar continued. Their training scenarios involve tracking exercises through complex terrain while carrying full combat loads. Each human soldier was expected to navigate by natural landmarks, identify concealed targets at extreme ranges, and engage multiple objectives while maintaining communication with their units. They performed these tasks as routine training exercises. A crystalline Zaluthan researcher spoke from the panel's far end. What about their weapons technology? Your reports mention capabilities beyond standard galactic parameters. Zektar's breathing apparatus wheezed as he recalled those memories. Human weapons are designed around their unique physiological advantages. They can process visual information faster than most species, react to threats with incredible speed, and maintain accuracy while moving at high velocity. Their equipment is built to exploit these capabilities. Their standard infantry weapon fires solid projectiles using chemical propulsion. This seems primitive until you understand the implications. These projectiles travel faster than most energy weapons, require no power source beyond the ammunition itself, and penetrate armor through kinetic force rather than energy dissipation. The military analyst made rapid notes. Chemical propulsion is obsolete technology. Most species abandoned such weapons millennia ago. That's what makes it so effective, Zektar replied. Our armor is designed to deflect energy weapons and absorb plasma bursts. It provides minimal protection against high-velocity solid projectiles. The humans deliberately chose technology that exploits weaknesses in modern defensive systems. But their individual weapons are only part of the picture. Human squad tactics integrate multiple weapon systems to create overlapping fields of fire. Each soldier carries different specialized equipment, allowing their small units to engage targets at ranges from close combat to extreme long-distance precision. A biomechanical Corinth engineer gestured with multiple appendages. Described their equipment integration protocols. Zektar's secondary arms wrapped around his torso defensively. Human soldiers wear powered armor systems that enhance their natural capabilities rather than replacing them. The armor doesn't restrict movement or limit sensory input. Instead, it amplifies strength, provides environmental protection, and integrates advanced sensor systems directly into the wearer's nervous system. During our tour, I witnessed a human soldier demonstrating their standard reconnaissance equipment. They could simultaneously monitor thermal signatures, electromagnetic emissions, gravitational anomalies, and chemical traces while maintaining normal combat awareness. All this information was processed and displayed without overwhelming their decision-making capabilities. The Selenite investigator interrupted. How does this compare to standard Veldrak reconnaissance protocols? Our scouts require dedicated equipment operators and communication specialists to process similar information. A Veldrak reconnaissance team consists of 6 specialists working together to accomplish what a single human soldier performs routinely. And the human still retains full combat effectiveness while conducting reconnaissance. Zektar returned to his seat, his composure becoming increasingly fragile. But the technology integration isn't the most disturbing aspect. It's how naturally humans adapt to and modify their equipment. During our visit, we observed maintenance procedures that would require specialized technical teams in our military. Individual human soldiers were upgrading their own weapons, modifying armor systems, and creating custom equipment configurations for specific mission requirements. This suggests a level of technical education and practical engineering skill that extends throughout their military population. They don't just use their technology, they understand it completely and can adapt it to changing circumstances in real time. An insectoid Thraxian psychologist activated its translation matrix. Soldier Zektar, describe the psychological assessment you conducted of human military personnel. Zektar's primary eyes closed as he accessed those particularly troubling memories. Human psychology is unlike anything in our xenopsychology databases. They exhibit what can only be described as controlled aggression. During peaceful interactions, they appear calm, reasonable, even friendly. But underneath this surface behavior lies a predatory awareness that never diminishes. I observed human soldiers during their rest periods, expecting to see relaxation behaviors similar to other species. Instead, I found individuals who remained constantly alert to their surroundings. They monitored every sound, every movement, every change in their environment while appearing to be engaged in casual conversation or recreational activities. When I questioned our guide about this behavior, she explained that humans call it situational awareness. They consider it a basic survival skill that all military personnel must master. The ability to maintain threat assessment capabilities while appearing relaxed or distracted is fundamental to their tactical doctrine. The Thraxian psychologist's compound eyes reflected the room's lighting. Did you observe any signs of psychological stress or combat fatigue among their personnel? That's perhaps the most disturbing aspect, Zektar replied. These humans had been stationed at their outpost for over 2 standard years, maintaining constant readiness for potential combat. In our military, such prolonged alert status would result in psychological breakdown, equipment failures, and disciplinary problems. The human personnel showed no signs of stress deterioration. When I asked about rotation schedules and psychological support systems, the human guide seemed confused by the question. She explained that their current assignment was considered a quiet posting with minimal stress factors. They viewed their isolation and constant alert status as normal working conditions. A serpentine Nesari communications specialist slithered forward. What did you observe about human information processing and decision-making protocols? Zektar's translator struggled with the emotional overtones of his response. Human command structures operate on principles that contradict established military science. Their field commanders are given broad tactical authority and expected to make independent decisions without consulting higher command levels. This should result in coordination failures and conflicting objectives. Instead, human units demonstrate seamless tactical coordination across multiple engagement zones. Each individual commander seems to anticipate the decisions of their colleagues and adjust their own actions accordingly. They achieve unit cohesion through shared understanding rather than rigid command protocols. During a training exercise we observed, human forces conducted a simulated defense against overwhelming odds. Rather than following predetermined defensive plans, each unit adapted its tactics based on real-time battlefield developments. They showed initiative and creativity that would be considered insubordination in our military structure. The military analyst looked up from his data pad. Did you identify any weaknesses in their tactical approach? That's the question that haunts every Valdrak military planner, Zektar responded. We conducted extensive analysis following our withdrawal, searching for tactical vulnerabilities we could exploit in future encounters. Every apparent weakness revealed itself to be a deliberate choice rather than an oversight. For example, human defensive positions appear exposed to orbital bombardment. Closer examination reveals that they've calculated the exact trajectory angles for space-based weapons and positioned their installations to minimize damage while maximizing opportunities for counterattack. What looks like poor planning is actually sophisticated tactical engineering. Their small unit sizes seem inadequate for controlling large areas of terrain. But humans don't seek to control territory in the traditional sense. They control key tactical positions that allow them to influence movement throughout much larger regions. A single human squad can effectively deny access to areas that would require an entire battalion to occupy using conventional methods. Zektar stood and walked to the chamber's observation window, staring out at the Galactic Council complex. The fundamental problem is that human tactical thinking operates on different assumptions than galactic standard doctrine. They don't fight to capture territory, control resources, or demonstrate superiority. They fight to eliminate threats with maximum efficiency and minimum resource expenditure. This philosophical difference makes them incredibly difficult to predict or counter. Traditional military planning relies on understanding enemy objectives and developing strategies to prevent their achievement. But, if the enemy's only objective is your destruction, conventional tactical analysis becomes useless. The Selenite investigator consulted her notes. Describe the human communication systems you observed. Human military communications violate several fundamental principles of information security, Zektar replied. They use encryption protocols that appear deliberately vulnerable to interception. During our visit, we detected multiple communication channels broadcasting openly across various frequencies. This apparent security failure confused our intelligence specialists until we discovered the truth. The humans want their communications intercepted. The information they broadcast openly serves as psychological warfare, providing potential enemies with just enough intelligence to understand the futility of aggressive action. Their real communications occur through channels we never detected despite carrying the most advanced interception equipment in our inventory. They have developed communication methods that operate outside the electromagnetic spectrum entirely. When I asked about this capability, our guide smiled and said it was classified above my clearance level. A gaseous Etherian analyst pulsed with curiosity patterns. What conclusions did your command structure reach about human military capabilities? Zektar returned to his seat, his posture reflecting defeat and exhaustion. High Command ordered a complete strategic reassessment following our encounter. Military intelligence spent months analyzing every piece of data we collected, hoping to find exploitable weaknesses or overestimated capabilities. The final report concluded that humanity represents an existential threat to any species that chooses aggressive action against them. Not because they seek conquest or expansion, but because their defensive capabilities exceed the offensive potential of known galactic powers. The report recommended immediate diplomatic outreach to establish peaceful relations and ensure that humanity never perceives the Valdrak Empire as a threat requiring elimination. Our military leadership, for the first time in our recorded history, chose strategic avoidance over territorial expansion. The room fell silent as the implications of this statement settled among the investigators. A species that had built its civilization through conquest and military dominance had voluntarily chosen to avoid conflict with humans rather than risk the consequences of continued aggression. The military analyst broke the silence. Soldier Zektar, you mentioned that the humans provided communication protocols for diplomatic contact. Has your government used these channels? Yes, Zektar replied quietly. 6 months after our withdrawal, High Command authorized a diplomatic mission to human space. The results of that contact are classified above my security level, but I can tell you that our Empire's expansion plans for the entire Galactic Rim sector have been permanently suspended. The diplomatic team returned with trade proposals, cultural exchange programs, and mutual defense agreements. Humanity apparently views the galaxy as containing sufficient space for all species to develop according to their own values and priorities. They have no interest in controlling other civilizations but will defend their right to exist independently. The Etherian analyst pulsed with confusion patterns. This suggests that humans might be natural allies rather than threats. That depends entirely on how you define threats, Zektar responded. Humanity poses no danger to species that respect their territorial boundaries and refrain from aggressive actions. But, for civilizations built on conquest and expansion, humans represent an absolute barrier to continued growth. They have demonstrated the capability to defend any position they choose to hold and the intelligence resources to identify threats before they fully develop. Any species that views humans as potential targets is making a strategic error that could result in their own extinction. As the investigators prepared to conclude the session, Zektar offered a final observation. The most terrifying aspect of our encounter wasn't their technology or their tactical capabilities. It was their restraint. These humans could have destroyed our entire fleet, occupied our colonies, or eliminated our civilization entirely. Instead, they chose to demonstrate just enough force to ensure we understood the consequences of continued aggression. A species capable of such destruction but disciplined enough to use it only when necessary represents something new in galactic politics. We've encountered races that were powerful, others that were intelligent, and some that were technologically advanced. But humans are the first species we've met that combines all these capabilities with the wisdom to use them responsibly. That combination makes them the most dangerous entities in the galaxy, not because they might destroy us, but because they represent everything we could have become if we had chosen a different path. The investigation chamber buzzed with activity as xenobiologists prepared specialized equipment for the day's session. Zektar noticed additional security protocols as he entered energy dampening fields, psychological monitoring systems, and what appeared to be emergency containment measures. The gravity of his testimony was clearly affecting the Galactic Council's standard procedures. A new investigator, a towering Mordavian with metallic skin, had joined the panel. His presence indicated that military high command across multiple species was now involved in the investigation. The implications of humanity's capabilities extended far beyond a single tactical defeat. The Selenite investigator activated the recording systems with visible reluctance. Soldier Zektar, today we need to understand the specific encounter that led to your psychological evaluation and extended medical leave. Begin with the reconnaissance mission that preceded the main battle. Zektar's breathing apparatus wheezed as he accessed those traumatic memories. 2 weeks after our withdrawal from the mining outpost, High Command ordered a covert reconnaissance mission to assess human defensive installations in adjacent star systems. Intelligence reports suggested multiple human settlements within striking distance of our territorial borders. I volunteered for the mission because I wanted to understand what we had truly encountered. The official reports seemed impossible to believe. A species capable of forcing Valdrak withdrawal through defensive action alone violated everything we understood about galactic power dynamics. The Mordavian investigator leaned forward, his metallic features reflecting the room's harsh lighting. Describe the reconnaissance team composition and objectives. 12 specialists equipped with the most advanced stealth technology in our inventory, Zektar replied. Our mission was pure observation, identify human installations, assess defensive capabilities, and determine the scope of their territorial claims. We were strictly forbidden from engaging in any activities that might be perceived as hostile. The target system contained a gas giant with 17 moons. Intelligence indicated human mining operations on 6 of the larger satellites. Our approach was planned to avoid detection while providing comprehensive surveillance of all human activities in the system. Zektar stood and began pacing, his agitation evident. We emerged from hyperspace at the system's edge, using a trajectory that would appear to be natural gravitational drift rather than powered flight. Our stealth systems were operating at maximum efficiency, rendering us effectively invisible to standard sensor arrays. Within minutes of achieving stable orbit around the outermost planetary body, we detected human ships moving toward our position. Not searching, moving directly toward us with the confidence of perfect knowledge about our location and capabilities. The room fell silent except for the humming of recording equipment. Several investigators exchanged concerned glances as the implications became clear. Impossible, the military analyst muttered. No detection system can penetrate Valdrak's stealth technology. That's what we believed, Zektar continued. Our commander ordered immediate withdrawal, but the human vessels had already positioned themselves to intercept any escape trajectory. We found ourselves effectively surrounded by ships that had somehow located us within minutes of our arrival. The human response came across standard diplomatic frequencies: Valdrak reconnaissance vessel, please identify your mission objectives and territorial authorization for operating in this system. They knew our species, our military designation, and our current operational status. A crystalline Zeluthan researcher activated her translation matrix. How did they identify your specific vessel and crew? That question haunted us for the remainder of the mission, Zektar replied. The human communication continued. Commander Thekvos, we are prepared to provide safe escort to the system boundary if you wish to conclude your observation mission. Alternatively, we invite you to dock with our station for direct diplomatic contact. They knew our commander's name. They knew we were conducting reconnaissance. They offered us choices instead of demanding surrender or withdrawal. The entire situation violated standard first contact protocols. Zektar's secondary arms wrapped around his torso defensively. Commander Thekvos chose to accept their invitation. The alternative was attempting to fight our way out against an unknown number of ships with capabilities we couldn't assess. The diplomatic option offered the best chance for gathering intelligence while ensuring crew survival. The human escort led us to a space station orbiting the gas giant's fourth moon. The structure was enormous, easily 10 times larger than our most advanced installations. But the truly disturbing aspect was how natural it appeared. The station seemed to have grown rather than been constructed, incorporating the moon's natural features into its design. The Mordavian investigator made notes on his datapad. Described the boarding procedures and security protocols. There weren't any, Zektar replied. The humans provided docking coordinates and environmental specifications for our crew. No weapons inspections, no escort guards, no confinement to specific areas. They treated us as honored guests rather than potential enemies. Our reception committee consisted of 3 humans wearing standard civilian clothing. No military uniforms, no visible weapons, no indication of rank or authority. They welcomed us to their facility and offered to answer any questions about their operations in the system. The leader introduced herself as Dr. Sarah Chen, the station's research coordinator. When Commander Thekvas inquired about military command structure, she explained that civilian scientists directed most human space operations. Military personnel provided security and logistical support but rarely interfered with civilian decision-making. Zektar's voice became strained. This information contradicted everything in our intelligence files. Military conquest requires centralized command authority and strict hierarchical control. A civilization that allowed civilian researchers to operate independently in frontier regions couldn't possibly maintain effective defensive capabilities. Dr. Chen offered us a comprehensive tour of their facilities, claiming that transparency would promote better understanding between our species. Commander Thekvas accepted, believing we could gather valuable intelligence about human capabilities and weaknesses. The Selenite investigator leaned forward. What did you observe during this tour? Impossibilities, Zektar whispered. The station's manufacturing bays were producing advanced technology from raw materials extracted from the moon's crust. They had somehow converted an entire satellite into a self-sufficient industrial complex capable of supporting thousands of personnel. But the manufacturing capabilities were only the beginning. Dr. Chen showed us research laboratories that were conducting experiments in fields our scientists consider purely theoretical. They were manipulating matter at the quantum level, creating artificial gravity fields, and generating energy through processes that violated known physical laws. When I asked about the theoretical basis for these technologies, Dr. Chen seemed genuinely surprised by the question. She explained that humans had developed these capabilities through practical engineering rather than theoretical research. They built things to see if they would work, then figured out the science afterward. A biomechanical Corinth engineer gestured with multiple appendages. Such an approach should result in catastrophic failures and resource waste. That's what logic would suggest, Zektar agreed. But humans seem to possess an intuitive understanding of how natural forces interact. They can predict the results of experimental procedures without fully comprehending the underlying principles. Dr. Chen called it educated guesswork and seemed to consider it a normal part of their research methodology. The tour continued through their living areas, recreational facilities, and educational centers. Every human we encountered demonstrated competence levels that would qualify them as specialists in multiple fields. Yet they treated their capabilities as routine aspects of their daily lives. Zektar's breathing became labored as he recalled specific encounters. I observed a human child, perhaps 10 standard years old, operating a gravity manipulation device as part of what she called a school science project. The principles involved were advanced enough to challenge our most experienced engineers, yet this young human was exploring them as basic education. When I expressed amazement at her abilities, the child seemed confused. She explained that all human children learn to work with natural forces as part of their normal development. Gravity manipulation, electromagnetic field generation, and basic matter conversion were considered elementary skills. The room's atmospheric recyclers hummed in the silence as investigators struggled to process these revelations. A species where children casually manipulated forces that represented the highest achievements of galactic science suggested capabilities beyond current understanding. The Thraxian psychologist activated its translation matrix. Describe your psychological assessment of the human population you encountered. They exhibited no signs of stress, fear, or aggression despite hosting a reconnaissance team from a potentially hostile species, Zektar replied. Every human we met demonstrated genuine curiosity about our culture and technology. They asked detailed questions about Valdrak society, military structure, and territorial expansion policies. But their questions weren't random inquiries. Each human seemed to understand exactly what information they needed to complete a comprehensive assessment of our civilization. They were conducting their own intelligence gathering operation while appearing to be friendly hosts. Dr. Chen eventually confirmed my suspicions. She explained that humans had been studying Valdrak expansion patterns for several years, trying to understand our motivations and predict future territorial claims. They had already identified multiple scenarios for potential conflict and developed response strategies for each possibility. Zektar's primary eyes closed as he accessed particularly disturbing memories. The most unsettling revelation came when Dr. Chen showed us their strategic planning center. They had created detailed models of Valdrak military capabilities, economic resources, and political structures. The accuracy of their information exceeded our own internal intelligence assessments. They knew the exact composition of our battle fleets, the production capacity of our industrial worlds, and the command protocols used by our military hierarchy. They had somehow acquired classified information that should have been impossible for an external intelligence service to obtain. When Commander Thekvas demanded an explanation for this intelligence breach, Dr. Chen's response was terrifying in its simplicity. She said, "Commander, you broadcast most of this information through your standard communication protocols. We simply listened and analyzed what you were already transmitting." The military analyst looked up sharply from his datapad. "Valdrak communication systems use quantum encryption that cannot be intercepted or decoded." "That's what we believed," Zektar continued. Dr. Chen showed us recordings of our own classified communications, decoded and translated into perfect Valdrak. She explained that human computer systems had identified patterns in our quantum encryption that we never suspected existed. But the communication intercepts were only part of their intelligence capabilities. They had also conducted covert observation missions throughout Valdrak space, using detection methods that bypassed our sensor networks entirely. They possessed detailed maps of our colony worlds, military installations, and industrial facilities. Zektar returned to his seat, his composure completely shattered. Commander Thekvas asked Dr. Chen directly, "How long have humans been monitoring our civilization?" Her answer destroyed everything we thought we knew about galactic politics. She said, "Commander, humans have been aware of Valdrak expansion activities for approximately 50 standard years. We've been tracking the development of all galactic civilizations that demonstrate aggressive territorial behaviors. It's part of our standard defensive planning protocols." 50 years, Zektar repeated. Humans had been studying us since before our first major expansion campaigns. They had watched us conquer dozens of worlds, absorb multiple species into our empire, and establish ourselves as a dominant galactic power. And they had been preparing for eventual conflict throughout that entire period. The Etherian analyst pulsed with alarm patterns. What level of preparation had they achieved? Dr. Chen was remarkably forthcoming about human defensive planning, Zektar replied. She explained that every human settlement in the galaxy was equipped with defensive capabilities sufficient to repel invasion attempts. Every civilian facility could be converted to military production within days. Every human citizen possessed training in combat operations and emergency response procedures. But the individual installations were only the foundation of their defensive strategy. Humans had also established hidden bases throughout what we considered empty space, creating a network of observation posts and supply depots that could support extended military operations. The scope of their preparation suggested that humans viewed galactic conflict as inevitable rather than possible. They had spent decades building defensive capabilities that exceeded the offensive potential of any known civilization. Zektar's voice became barely audible. Dr. Chen showed us classified military projections that detailed potential conflict scenarios with every major galactic power. The humans had wargamed invasions by the Mordavian Empire, the Crystalline Hegemony, and even combined alliance forces. In every scenario, human defensive capabilities proved sufficient to repel the attacks and conduct effective counter-operations. When Commander Thekvas asked about the basis for these projections, Dr. Chen's answer revealed the true extent of human capabilities. She said, "Commander, these aren't projections. They're historical records. We've already fought these wars in controlled simulation environments, using perfect replicas of your actual military forces and equipment. Humans had somehow acquired complete specifications for every piece of military technology used by galactic civilizations. They had built functional replicas of our ships, weapons, and defensive systems. They had conducted full-scale war games against simulated versions of our entire military structure. And, in every simulation, human forces had achieved decisive victories with minimal casualties and resource expenditure. The investigation chamber fell silent as the full implications became clear. Humanity had not simply stumbled upon superior technology or tactics. They had systematically studied every potential enemy, developed specific counter-strategies, and tested their effectiveness through comprehensive simulation. The Mordavian investigators' metallic features reflected grim understanding. Soldier Zektar, this concludes the most disturbing intelligence briefing in galactic history. Your testimony will be classified at the highest security levels and distributed only to species leadership councils. As the recording equipment powered down, Zektar remained seated, staring at his trembling hands. He had shared the truth about humanity's capabilities, but he knew that truth would forever change how galactic civilizations viewed their place in the universe. The age of conquest and expansion was over, ended not by negotiation or mutual agreement, but by the simple reality that some species were too dangerous to threaten. The final session convened in the Galactic Council's most secure facility, buried deep beneath the capital world's crust. Emergency protocols were in effect, with council representatives from 47 different species present via secure holographic links. The testimony from previous sessions had triggered the first galaxy-wide security alert in recorded history. Zektar entered the chamber flanked by medical personnel and psychological counselors. The strain of recounting his encounters with humanity had pushed him to the edge of complete mental breakdown. His multiple eyes were dim, his breathing labored, and his secondary arms trembled with constant nervous spasms. The chamber itself had been modified with additional shielding and recording systems. Every word of this final session would be preserved for analysis by xenobiologists, military strategists, and political leaders across the galaxy. The implications of human capabilities had already begun reshaping fundamental assumptions about galactic civilization. A new investigator, an ancient Vortak philosopher whose species predated most current galactic powers, served as the session moderator. Her presence indicated that the Council was treating this investigation as a pivotal moment in galactic history rather than a routine military debriefing. Soldier Zektar, the Vortak began, her voice carrying the weight of millennia. Your previous testimony has been analyzed by the galaxy's finest minds. Today, we need to understand the final phase of your encounter with humanity. Begin with the moment your mission parameters changed from reconnaissance to survival. Zektar's translator struggled with the emotional resonance in his voice. The turning point came when Dr. Chen offered to show us what she called humanity's true defensive capabilities. Commander Thekbos had been pressing for information about human military readiness, and Dr. Chen finally agreed to provide a practical demonstration. She led us to the station's central control center, a facility that managed defensive operations throughout their entire star system. The scale of coordination was unlike anything in our military databases. Single operators were monitoring activities across multiple planets, moons, and orbital installations simultaneously. But the control center itself wasn't the revelation. It was what Dr. Chen showed us on their strategic displays. Real-time surveillance data from throughout the galaxy, including detailed monitoring of Valdrak military movements in our own territory. The chamber fell silent except for the humming of advanced recording equipment. Representatives from multiple species leaned forward, their attention focused entirely on Zektar's account. Dr. Chen activated a holographic display showing the current positions of our reconnaissance fleet. Every Valdrak ship within 50 parsecs appeared on their monitors, with detailed identification codes, crew complements, and mission assignments. Information that should have been classified at the highest levels of our military command. Zektar's breathing became more labored. When Commander Thekbos demanded an explanation, Dr. Chen's response revealed the true scope of human intelligence capabilities. She said, "Commander, we monitor all military activities by potentially hostile civilizations. It's a basic component of our defensive strategy." She showed us surveillance data from the Mordavian Empire's most secret military installations. Detailed analysis of crystalline hegemony battle formations. Complete specifications for Etherian energy weapons. Intelligence reports that included information about species we had never encountered. A Mordavian representative interrupted via holographic link. Such comprehensive intelligence gathering would require surveillance networks spanning thousands of star systems.
That's exactly what they had built, Zektar confirmed. Dr.
Chen explained that humans had been establishing monitoring stations throughout the galaxy for over a century. Automated facilities that observed and recorded all significant military activities, political developments, and technological advances. But their monitoring network was only the foundation of something much more terrifying. Dr. Chen showed us predictive models that analyzed galactic civilization patterns and projected future conflicts with remarkable accuracy. Zektar stood and began pacing, his agitation increasing. Their computer systems had identified 17 different scenarios that could lead to galaxy-wide warfare. They had calculated the probability of each scenario, identified the likely participants, and developed intervention strategies to prevent or minimize the conflicts.
Intervention strategies?
The ancient Vorthak leaned forward with interest.
Humans had been secretly influencing galactic politics for decades, Zektar replied.
Anonymous technology transfers that prevented resource wars.
Diplomatic communications that diffused territorial disputes. Economic assistance that stabilized collapsing governments.
All designed to maintain galactic peace without revealing human involvement. Dr. Chen showed us historical records of their intervention activities. Hundreds of operations conducted across the galaxy, each one preventing conflicts that could have escalated into major wars. They had been functioning as invisible peacekeepers, using their advanced capabilities to preserve stability.
The Selenite investigator consulted her datapad. What was humanity's motivation for these covert operations? Self-preservation, Zektar answered immediately.
Dr. Chen was completely honest about human strategic planning.
She explained that large-scale galactic conflicts would inevitably threaten human territories and endanger their civilian populations. Prevention was more efficient than defensive warfare.
But their prevention strategies revealed capabilities that exceeded their defensive demonstrations. They could manipulate galactic politics, influence technological development, and coordinate activities across thousands of light-years without detection.
The level of control they exercised was unprecedented.
Zektar's primary eyes closed as he accessed the most disturbing memories.
Commander Thekvos asked Dr. Chen about humanity's ultimate objectives. Were they planning galactic conquest? Did they intend to establish dominance over other species?
Her answer changed everything we thought we understood about power and civilization. She said, "Commander, humans have no interest in governing other species or controlling galactic politics. We simply want to ensure that our own society can develop according to our values and priorities.
Everything else is secondary to that objective."
When pressed for details about human society and values, Dr. Chen provided information that violated our basic assumptions about advanced civilizations. Humans had no central government, no unified military command, no hierarchical social structure. They functioned as independent communities that cooperated voluntarily rather than through institutional control. A crystalline Zaluthan representative pulsed with confusion patterns.
How do they coordinate activities across multiple star systems without centralized authority?
That question puzzled us as well, Zektar replied.
Dr. Chen explained that humans share common values and educational foundations that make formal coordination unnecessary.
Every human community understands the principles of their society and makes decisions accordingly.
Their defensive capabilities emerge from this shared understanding rather than military planning.
When threats appear, human communities respond automatically without requiring orders or coordination from higher authorities.
The entire civilization functions as a distributed intelligence network.
Zektar returned to his seat, his posture reflecting complete emotional exhaustion.
Dr. Chen offered to demonstrate this distributed response capability. She activated an emergency communication that was broadcast to every human installation in the galaxy.
Within minutes, we observed coordinated defensive preparations across hundreds of star systems.
Space stations activated advanced weapon systems.
Civilian installations converted to military production. Hidden bases revealed themselves and began coordinating patrol operations.
The entire human civilization transitioned from peaceful development to defensive readiness in less than an hour.
But the most terrifying aspect was their restraint. Despite activating galaxy-wide defensive protocols, they maintained perfect discipline. No human units initiated offensive operations or moved beyond their assigned territorial boundaries. They demonstrated the capability for coordinated action while maintaining complete adherence to defensive principles.
The ancient Vorthak philosopher gestured with aged appendages.
Describe the conclusion of your encounter and the intelligence assessment you provided to your command structure. Zektar's voice became barely audible.
Dr. Chen concluded our visit by providing complete specifications for human defensive capabilities.
Not partial information or tactical hints, but detailed technical data that would allow any species to understand exactly what they would face if they chose aggressive action against humanity.
She gave us manufacturing specifications for their weapons systems, engineering diagrams for their defensive installations, tactical manuals that explained their operational doctrines. Everything necessary to conduct accurate threat assessments and strategic planning.
When Commander Thekbos asked why she was sharing such sensitive information, her answer revealed the fundamental difference between human thinking and galactic standard military doctrine. She said, "Commander, transparency prevents misunderstandings that lead to unnecessary conflicts. If you understand our capabilities, you can make informed decisions about future interactions." The intelligence package she provided included communication protocols for establishing diplomatic relations, trade agreements that would benefit both civilizations, and cultural exchange programs that could promote mutual understanding. Humanity was offering partnership rather than demanding submission. Zektar's breathing apparatus wheezed as he struggled to continue.
Our return to Valdrak space triggered the most comprehensive strategic review in our empire's history.
Military intelligence analyzed every piece of data Dr. Chen had provided, searching for deception or exaggeration. The conclusions were unanimous and terrifying.
Humanity possessed the technological capability to eliminate any galactic civilization that threatened them. Their defensive installations could repel invasion attempts by combined alliance forces. Their intelligence networks could predict and counter any strategic operation we might plan. Their distributed coordination allowed them to respond to threats faster than conventional military commands could react. But the most disturbing conclusion was psychological rather than tactical. Humans had demonstrated the capability for galactic conquest but chose restraint. They could have dominated every other species but preferred coexistence. They represented something unprecedented in galactic history, a civilization that combined ultimate power with ultimate discipline. The chamber fell silent as representatives from across the galaxy absorbed the implications. Humanity had revealed themselves as the most powerful civilization in galactic history, yet they sought only to be left alone to develop their society in peace. The ancient Vorthak spoke into the silence. Soldier Zektar, what recommendations did you make to your military leadership? Complete strategic reorientation, Zektar replied without hesitation. The Valdrak Empire needed to abandon territorial expansion and focus on internal development. Humanity had demonstrated that aggressive civilizations would eventually encounter forces beyond their ability to overcome. I recommended immediate diplomatic contact to establish peaceful relations and explore opportunities for beneficial cooperation. Humans possessed technologies that could solve many of our civilization's problems, but access required abandoning our traditional approach to galactic politics. Most importantly, I recommended that all Valdrak military forces receive comprehensive briefings about human capabilities. Our warriors needed to understand that some conflicts cannot be won through courage or tactical superiority. Sometimes, wisdom requires recognizing when you have encountered something beyond your ability to challenge. Zektar's final words carried the weight of absolute conviction. Humanity has forced every galactic civilization to confront a fundamental question: do we continue pursuing expansion and conquest until we encounter something that destroys us, or do we learn to build civilizations based on cooperation and mutual respect? The choice is simple. We can adapt to a galaxy where humans exist, or we can face the consequences of challenging a species that has already demonstrated their ability to defend themselves against any threat. The ancient Vorthak nodded slowly. This concludes the most significant intelligence briefing in galactic history. Your testimony will be preserved as a permanent record and distributed to all species leadership councils. As the session ended and representatives began disconnecting from their holographic links, Zektar remained seated in the empty chamber. He had completed his testimony, but he knew that his words would reshape galactic civilization forever. Humanity had revealed themselves not as conquerors or saviors,
but as guardians of a new kind of galactic order.
An order based on the principle that sufficiently advanced defensive capabilities could make aggressive warfare obsolete.
Species could choose between peaceful development and eventual extinction, but the choice was entirely their own.
The age of galactic conquest was over. The age of human-monitored peace had begun.
And Zektar, a simple soldier who had witnessed the transition, would spend the rest of his life helping his civilization adapt to a universe where the most powerful species was also the most restrained. The recording devices powered down, their files automatically encrypted and transmitted to intelligence agencies across the galaxy. Zektar's testimony would become required reading for military leaders, political scientists, and xenobiologists throughout known space. But, for Zektar himself, the testimony was finally complete. He had shared the truth about humanity's capabilities and their implications for galactic civilization. The future would be shaped by how other species chose to respond to that truth, and whether they possessed the wisdom to choose peace over the futile pursuit of conquest against an undefeatable enemy.